So taking a look at tomorrow's papers with the Conservative MP, Rehman Chishti, and the former Lib Dem Deputy Press Secretary, Ollie Kendall. So let's talk about the Lib Dems then, shall we, Ollie? Front page of The Independent, what's going on?
Well, Independent says that a poll of polls puts the party at 11%, which apparently is the lowest since the party was formed in 1988. But I refuse to be beaten by this. I mean, typical lazy journalism. The Independent says 57 Lib MPs would produce a rump of just 15 at the next election. Well, of course, that simply wouldn't happen because of our first-past-post electoral system as we have it. Hopefully we'll have a new changed electoral system come May with the referendum. But I do understand why people feel slightly, perhaps betrayed is too strong, but let down by the Liberal Democrats. I mean, there were pledges before the election on VAT, on tuition fees, which, although I think we can understand why they had to make them as part of this compromising coalition, people feel that they've been turncoats in government. And of course, this was the party that put trust in politics at the very top of its manifestos for two successful elections, over the war in Iraq and then over expenses. So to then have that party in which people place so much faith perceived as having gone to bed with the party that was anathema to most of the membership is obviously very difficult, and that's reflected in the polls. I would, however, say, and I think most Lib Dems are saying, look, we're only 6 months in, it was always going to be difficult. We were left with a pretty grim economic legacy. And 2011, VAT increase aside, has the potential to be quite positive. We've got the pupil premium coming in, a big election pledge to the Lib Dems. We've got the raise in the threshold of income tax, which will benefit the least well-off. That's coming in later on this year. And we've got the AV referendum,
but
big opportunity.
This was predicted though, wasn't it? As you went into bed with the Conservatives, that the Liberal Democrats would be so scarred that they would be a spent political force by the time of the next election. Is there real concern in the party now that that might happen?
Well, I mean, on your first point, I think in a way it's almost credit to the Lib Dems that they did put national interest ahead of party interest. They said, look, what's the priority here?
Well, no, they wanted to get into government, didn't they? Let's be honest about it. It's not just about national interest.
Yeah, of course they wanted to get into government so that they could pursue their own fairness agenda, and we could see that the bank levy, which has already come in, a Lib Dem.
But how much concern is there within the party about the state of play?
I actually don't think there is. I think the big middle of next year, local elections, AV referendum, I think we're going to take a hit on the local elections. I think if the AV referendum doesn't go away, I think it will spell difficulty. The doomsayers say, oh, Nick Clegg's days are numbered. Absolute nonsense. The top of the coalition, the relationship between the two most important men is very tight. That's not to say that politically or policy-wise they agree on everything, but it is a coalition in which the people are in agreement on one thing, and that is we're going to get the economy turned around, and that's something that Labour could not deliver. So whatever you might say about the Lib Dems, I think you'd agree we're doing the right thing for the economy.
But that's not the question I wanted to ask him. You're sitting there, and obviously they are coalition partners now, but in the battleground of the general election, you're fighting in the same heartlands. It's great for you when they're down on 11%.
I think the question is, it's in terms of coming together for the national interest, which is what we had to do. Also, we had to respect the public's decision. The public's decision was what they voted in. They didn't vote.
I still didn't answer that question.
No. What you did say is in terms of next election, yes, of course we'll fight as a separate entity. And yes, of course I want to see a Conservative majority government. And if after the next election, I know there's talk to say this will continue with a coalition if we win by some quarters. I don't want that. I want a clear Conservative majority. But in the short term, we have to work together for the greater good. And like Ollie says, the key factor at the moment is the economy. People want money, they want jobs, and we have to make sure we work together for the national interest to make that happen. But next election, of course, we fight them all the way.
Oh, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? Anyway, as you say, May could be the start of something interesting for the Lib Dems, certainly. Now, let's move on to a couple of the papers. Both The Sun and The Mirror are still leading on this very intriguing and distressing case of Joanna Yates. There's the two front pages.
Yeah, I think the first point is one's heart goes out to Joanna's family in terms of the uncertainty that they had to go through. And even now, there is that uncertainty. Nobody knows exactly what happened. So the sympathy, the support goes to the family. The development that's come about, we've seen the development to say the police profiling. In my experience, as somebody who was a barrister before entering Parliament, it is an interesting development. But equally, one would say, what is that profiling being based on? I spoke to colleagues who are barristers for over 22 years, and they've never seen the use of profiling in criminal cases. It's very rare. It's very rare, profiling to be used. Also, profiling in a court of law, by itself, cannot be sustained.
So does it suggest some desperation, do you think, in terms of where the police inquiry is going?
I think one element could be that they've drawn blank on other points of inquiry, and therefore you go down this route. Simply profiling by itself in a court of law would not be sustainable. You'd have to have either direct evidence or circumstantial evidence. That at the moment we haven't been given. The fundamental point is, how did Joanna's body get to that location? We saw in the Huntley trial that it led to the tyre tracks of Huntley's car. Therefore, we have to look at all the evidence, and forensic evidence is really crucial. Yes, one welcomes this as a way of finding a way forward, but equally, it can't by itself be the crucial point to the investigation.
I mean, you just get a little bit of a sense there's a bit of a cul-de-sac here. Every day the family, the police are releasing new pictures of Joe, but actually they're no closer, it seems, to arresting any suspects. There doesn't seem to be a main suspect in the inquiry. Although having said that, just as we were talking, you noticed the front page of the Mirror, which apparently says that Joe's killer caught on CCTV, and it does have a grainy picture there of the circle. I can't see it from here. So perhaps that might be a major development in the case. We don't know, but certainly at the moment it doesn't seem like there's much progress.
I'm expecting more from the police at 9:30, I think, tomorrow morning, so maybe we'll wait and get a bit more on that. Meantime, over in Los Angeles, another extremely intriguing case has got underway, which is the case against Michael Jackson's doctor, which is in the Daily Express.
I think we're going to see a lot more of this story, not just on page 2 of the Express, but on the front pages as the sort of weeks and the months roll on this court case, which of course is televised, will dominate media coverage. According to, I think this is the first day of the case, and the allegation goes that his personal physician killed him with an overdose of anaesthesia, and crucially didn't alert the paramedics to the state that Michael Jackson was in when he was dying or perhaps dead, until after he alerted Michael Jackson's security staff, which seemed an incredibly odd decision and potentially neglect if he was putting his security ahead of his well-being.
I think the other point on this is that this is a preliminary hearing. This is not the day of the trial at all. In America, what they have a first prelim hearing to say, is there sufficient evidence to go for trial on a charge of involuntary manslaughter? And I think on that, all he says is with regards to, did he do the right things, not intentionally kill him. The fact is, I think in some of these cases, like Anna Nicole Smith or Elvis Presley, we never knew. There was links to say there may have been the usage of drugs, but nobody ever found out.
We're going to have more on that in the Midnight News, live to LA with that. Just 30 seconds left to tell us about the last story in the Daily Mail.
A big health story in the Daily Mail, which they should always carry health warnings, these stories. However, it says that apparently those contraceptive implants that women have in their arms, which can last up to 3 years, have in some cases been found not to work. Now, I guess all contraceptives come with some health warnings. None of them are perfect. But according to the article, 584 women, presumably in the UK, who've had the hormone fitted in their arms have reported unwanted pregnancies. Now, we don't know how many women have had it fitted, so what percentage of that it represents, God only knows, but it's clearly worrying, and I'm sure there's lots of women who'll be wanting to use plenty of other contraception if they are currently on...
But equally, when we've got a problem with teenage pregnancies already in our country, we're dealing with that. Here you've got people who've taken responsibility, trying to make sure that they don't get pregnant, and then suddenly find out. Yeah, of course, and I think that's what the worrying situation is over here.
I'm going to keep you quiet because we want to show people the pictures that many people may not have got up, especially if you work late like we do. That dense cloud, of course, dense cloud cover rod that disappointed many sky gazers in Britain who were desperately trying to catch a glimpse of the partial solar eclipse this morning. Wasn't the case in other parts of the world. This was over Jerusalem. As you can see, the sun looked like it had a chunk taken out of it. Europe woke up to a sunrise eclipse. This was the scene in Dresden, in East Germany, one of the best places in the country for people to observe the partial eclipse. Meantime, some people back in Britain were lucky. Cambridge, one of the few localities clear enough to get a good view of the spectacle. Did you see it?
I was too busy clearing my email backlog on the first day back after the bank holiday. No, I didn't. That's the first time I've seen it.
I've got to be honest, actually, and being Polish, you have to be straight up in public. I didn't see it. I was busy going through my constituents' case.
And I thought about getting up early and I forgot. Rehman, Nolly, good to have you with us. Thanks very much indeed.